Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Next Generation of Cloud Optimization Development. My name is Matt Bates, and I'm the product manager at Optilogic. Today, you're in for a real treat. We've got Gurobi's CEO, Dr. Ed Rothberg, as well as Optilogic's CEO, Don Hicks, starting us off to talk about our unique partnership and what this means for folks using the Gurobi Optimizer. We'll follow them up with a demo of the platform presented by myself and Dan Jeffrey, Senior Technical Account Manager at Gurobi. We'll end the webinar with a live Q&A with myself, Dan, and Don Hicks, so make sure you stick around until the end. Before we start the webinar, I want to go through a couple housekeeping items. First, you can ask a question in the chat section down below during the webinar. An Optilogic member will be able to answer questions or let you know if we'll reserve them for the live Q&A. You can also leave your questions for the live Q&A section down below where it says live Q&A in your control panel. For any questions we don't get to, our team will reach out after the webinar. Now, let me introduce you all to our first couple of speakers. Dr. Ed Rothberg is the CEO of Gurobi. He has led Gurobi to become the provider of the best mathematical optimization solver on the market. He is one of the world's leading experts in sparse Cholesky factorization and computational, linear, integer, and quadratic programming. He's particularly well known for his work in parallel sparse matrix factorization and in heuristics for mixed integer programming. Dr. Ed Rothberg is joined by Don Hicks, CEO of Optilogic. He is the founder and former CEO of LlamaSoft, Inc., where he led the company to become a global leader in supply chain design. He is a multi-year recipient of Supply and Demand Chain Executives Pros to Know Award and a frequent speaker on supply chain modeling and design topics, network optimization, and risk mitigation at global industry events. Ed, Don, take it away.
Thanks for that great introduction. My name is Don Hicks, and it's my pleasure to be with you. And before I say anything else, I want to thank Ed Rothberg, a guy I've known for a long time, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you, Ed, for joining us for a couple minutes to talk about Optilogic. It's pretty thrilling.
Sure, happy to be here.
Outstanding. So we're going to spend some time talking about and showing off the software and the tool. But before we get into all of that, I'd love to have a couple minutes to frame it and also to talk to Ed about his thoughts on partnering and ecosystems. We made Optilogic, our team, to try to make things easier, to help leverage optimization technology, make it more useful and more powerful behind applications. Many of us came from a company called LlamaSoft previously that served supply chain specific applications, but at the heart of it was optimization. And we saw firsthand how powerful and how much impact optimization technologies can have on companies. But we also ran into a lot of difficulties ourselves as users. And these days, with so much capability being pushed through the browser and so many resources available in the cloud, we're still a little surprised that companies aren't able to leverage the cloud intersecting with optimization in a more powerful way. And so we decided to put together Atlas to serve a couple of these needs. First of all, to make things easier by putting it online. Second, to make it more useful by making it easier to deploy these optimization models and solvers together. And then third, to make it more fun to bring together networks of people. And we love optimization. We know its power. And if that's true, then it means we must be working with Gurobi. People we've admired. These are the guys. This is the gold standard in optimization. And so I want to actually thank Ed again and then kick it over and maybe ask you, Ed, can you remind everybody a little bit about the Gurobi mission? They've heard it a million times, but 1,000,001 won't hurt them. So maybe a little bit about the mission.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, so at Gurobi, we're really trying to make optimization as accessible as possible. And there are a few different aspects of that. One is just performance. There's just a need, just a continuing need for greater and greater performance to be able to solve bigger and more complex models. And then there's accessibility, just making optimization as easy to use, as easy to deploy as possible. And there's some things that we do as Gurobi to push the goal of deployability, of usability. But there's some things that basically we work with partners on. And so the ability, as Don said, the ability to build applications that work in optimization applications that work in a cloud environment it's an important area. And Atlas is an interesting new tool in this area.
Appreciate it. And let's be clear, we've been around tech a long time. A lot of times partnering means somebody paid somebody else to advertise. And in this case, what I want to frame this as, Gurobi is the leader in the optimization space, but it was my sense that you have an idea about creating an ecosystem around it. And that was what got us pretty thrilled about working with you. Can you comment about how Gurobi wants to partner and likes to partner? And I guess I could say, are you Microsoft or are you Apple?
Yeah. Yeah. So one fascinating thing about optimization is just how widely it's used. It's so many different industries, so many different deployment models. And the reality is one company can't handle all these different usage scenarios. It's just too broad. It's just too broad of a technology. So at Gurobi, we've always viewed our role as providing the base solver technology, and then providing a set of tools that allow you to use the product from some of the most common usage scenarios. But some of the other important usage scenarios, we're just not aiming to cover all of them. And so we work with partners to try to basically make the tool as easy to use in all the different scenarios as possible.
Fantastic. Now, throughout all the years at Llamasoft, we saw a distinct pattern emerge with optimization technologies, and that was there's a set of applications up front where people are developing models and analyzing them, and it's highly interactive. And then some portion of the time it switches on over and people say, I've got a model formulation and I want to load this thing up and rerun it over and over again. Can you tell me, do you see that same pattern? And is there any one part of this that's sort of more or less important for you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The one thing that people often don't realize is that an optimization model will have a life cycle, a lifespan. And so, you build the initial model. It's extremely rare for you to just build the model, deploy it, and then forget about it. You build the model, you deploy it, the business situation changes, maybe the problems get bigger, maybe the problems get harder. And so there's just a need to be able to just constantly, interact with your model, play with your model, make adjustments. And, in a lot of cases, basically just do comparisons, compare what happens if I do this, what happens if I do that. And these are very common. I absolutely agree that these are quite common situations.
One of the metaphors that I always come back to is the metaphor of an airplane. And Gurobi makes the Rolls Royce of jet engines right now. You can use it to get started, but it powers all kinds of things, but you still have to get an airplane to carry you from one place to another. I've been trying to figure out, as Optilogic, are we making a wing? Are we making the fuselage? Are we making the airplane? Our customers together are flying an airplane. They use these technologies because they want to get from one place to another. But the metaphor I think about is being able to, in the mid-flight, open up that engine component, adjust things, rewire some things, and slap it shut and keep cruising ahead. This deployment problem has been an issue holding back optimization. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, it's interesting when it comes to sort of the breadth of usage. Optimization is not always at the top of the stack, if you will. It's not the thing that drives the whole application. But there's, and so if it's part of a big application, then sure, it doesn't necessarily need to be entirely completely visible. But there are lots and lots of situations where optimization is the thing that's sort of driving the project. That's someone has identified an opportunity, and they've built a model, and they need to demonstrate its value.
Yeah.
And the best way to demonstrate its value is to basically make it visual, to be able to show someone, to essentially to be able to hand it to someone so that they can play with it, understand. Optimization for a lot of people, the way it works is counterintuitive. Just the notion that you can have, a piece of software that'll just go and take in all this input and just come up with an optimal solution. it's strange to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
That's,
I will argue as well that sometimes folks get a little confused in terms of the Holy Grail, and by that I mean Monty Python. When they ride over the hills and they're banging the coconuts together and they say Camelot, Camelot, and then the guy in the back says it's only a model. A lot of this myth that you run the optimization once and you get your one answer and you're done. Certainly, that's never been our experience.
right.
Optimization is so powerful. It gets you the answer, but one of the things that we've seen is it's a little tempting to just rely on that one answer when it's actually the journey, the attempt to optimize that is where you get so much value out of it. You need both sides of this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so I mean, for the experts, there's value in being able to explore the model, understand the impact of the various changes on the solution. And then for the non-experts, we found that it just makes it a lot more intuitive to be able to just see what happens. As you say, one monolithic model. Here's your model. Press the solve button. Got the optimal solution. You're done. So that's for someone who doesn't understand what's going on. That's not a very intuitive sort of way to present the model. It's much better to be able to say, okay, fine. You think you're so smart. What if I change this? And for you to realize, oh, okay, sure, it can deal with changes here, it can deal with changes there. That is an important part to the whole optimization modeling process.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, it's a pleasure to be here working with your customer base and your community, because an immature organization might say, well, we do everything, we solve every problem. But our experience working with Gurobi so far is Gurobi is a mature company that wants to fill in the ecosystem and bring more value added. Optilogic, we're bringing a little bit of middleware. We're trying to help your customers. And if it works, then they'll find a place for us on the desktop. I just wanted to, again, say thank you for the chance to get in there and bring some other technologies out there that can even add and leverage the investment and the time and their knowledge in what you've done. So I'll say it out loud, Gurobi's the best there is. And we're all better off that you guys continue to focus and drive ahead with optimization. Optilogic's got a place to play, we think, in helping people leverage those investments. We hope that as more users get on board, that they'll be grateful that we were able to put this ecosystem together and focus on solving problems.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that users have a new deployment option. I think it's a win for everyone involved, for sure.
Excellent. Well, the proof's in the pudding, and I think our guys are going to want to show off the tech a little bit. And don't take our word for it, guys. Give it a shot. If our technology doesn't work for you, don't use it. It's up to us to prove ourselves, and Gurobi is incredibly graceful for giving us a chance to just talk to you for a few minutes. Okay, so Ed, thanks again. I appreciate it, and thanks to all your staff. You've been fantastic to work with.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Don. Really happy to be here. My name is Matt Bates. I'm the product manager at Optilogic, working on Atlas and Andromeda. And here from Gurobi, we have Dan. So Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Matt. I'm a technical account manager at Gurobi. That means I help customers who most often are fairly new to the Gurobi API. A few of them are even new to math programming. And so I see a lot of the pain points that people have when they're trying to get started using a commercial solver for optimization. And because of that, I've been really eager to see, for Gurobi users rather, to see your system, this Optilogic system. I've been trying it out myself for the past few weeks, and it really solves some issues for math programmers that in ways that are pretty elegant. And so I'm looking forward to this.
It's been great to work with you in particular, Dan, over the last few weeks, and very excited to work with Gurobi and really partner to kind of bring this technology to a wider audience. I think one of the things I like most about Gurobi is that really your message has been so consistent for as long as I've known about Gurobi, and that's really a focus on advancing solver technology and making it more widely adopted in any way that you can, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And I think that an Optilogic and Gurobi pairing, it really sort of syncs up our missions, because they have such good alignment. We want a lot of the same things.
Well, I mean, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because at Gurobi, we focus on the solver. So all of the energy at Gurobi goes into making the solver better and faster. And so that leaves a gap. I mean, well, you need some kind of a tool to develop your model. And I do believe that, as you say, Optilogic will bring a wider audience to Gurobi. I've been working here now for quite a while, and it's really exciting to see these speed ups of the solver that we've had over the last several years. And each new release brings new features and faster solver, but you still have this gap that I mentioned. So Optilogic will be a critical piece of that puzzle, I think.
Yeah, and we love having Gurobi in our platform, because looking over the history of Gurobi releases and the performance gains that you guys have achieved, it's incredible. And we're looking at problems now that you couldn't even think of solving with a solver just a few short years ago. And you hit the nail on the head with what our goal is to really increase access and affordability and availability of optimization technology. We started off and included some open source technology, which can work for some small problems and some small scope. But when you get into professional grade, right, industrial grade problems, you really need an industrial grade solution. And that's what Gurobi is on the solver side. And we've created a next generation platform that's web native, that allows users to really maximize the power that Gurobi brings to bear. So really exciting stuff.
It is exciting, and I've been working with your team, really professional developer team, over the past months, sitting on the sidelines for my part, really, but it's been exciting to see the progress that Optilogic's made.
Yeah, and it's definitely been exciting to be a part of that. Now, we want to get into a demo, and we don't want to take too much more time without getting into that demo. But I suppose one question that I want to bring up is, what does this all mean for Gurobi users, right? I'm sure a lot of our audience is going to be asking that same question. And so I'll quickly summarize what I see this means, and then we can jump right into the demo and get moving. So I think first and foremost, this allows users to leverage Gurobi in the cloud, and I mean fully in the cloud. Every aspect of optimization can now be done in a cloud environment. There's no software or hardware setup or configuration. Our users can achieve massive scalability, and we greatly simplify the model deployment issue that we have all run into in the past. And we also offer ways to collaborate with colleagues for this whole process.
Yeah, and that one point there about the scaling really is pretty exciting, because Gurobi parallelizes so well. It's useful sometimes to build clusters of machines to solve a problem, or spin up a big machine to solve a problem, and that can involve IT work. Well, with your platform, it's not necessary; it does it automatically. So I'm anxious to see this in the demo.
Yeah, I'm really excited to show that. I am a nerd at heart, and so that piece in particular, if I had to pick a favorite sort of value add of our platform, it would be that one. I think it's really cool. So I'm really excited to get to that piece. So when we talk about our platform, we typically talk about 4 main pillars. Those are build, deploy, scale, and collaborate. So I'm going to kind of go through what we're going to show in that format, and kind of focus on those things as we move through. So I'm going to get into our platform here. But as we think about technologies like, we'll say Google Docs or Office 365, this means that your files can really be accessed from anywhere. And this is really a huge value add for productivity and for accessibility, because you have all of your, well, we'll say a lot of your data accessible from any device, right? Whether that's from a desktop computer at work or your phone on the go or a laptop at home, you have it all right there available to you. And we think that there is no reason this can't apply to your models as well. Now, typically that would mean that you would need a machine that has everything configured on it to be able to run it. Otherwise, you're just looking at lines of code, which is why our modeling studio is 100% cloud-based, and it has all the features of the IDEs that you're used to seeing on desktops. So we'll add a new workspace here, and you can think of a workspace as your machine in the cloud. It's fully set up and ready to go. And you can see right from the beginning that Gurobi really takes center stage. And honestly, it's the best solver, so why wouldn't it? All you need to do to configure a machine in Optilogic is click on the technology that you want. Now, you see a new workspace here that got created called Serpens. Now, we give each of our workspaces the name of a constellation. We really love space at Optilogic, and we hope you do too. If you would like to name it something else, you can edit your workspace, so that's fine. But you know, we would love it if you kind of join us in our space motif. Now, a couple things to notice really quick. The overhead of obtaining, provisioning, installing, and configuring and setting up a machine that's ready to use Gurobi is all gone. You know, we see our workspace has started already. It has been started with the same base configuration that anyone else's machine would be as well. So if you have a team of people that you're working with and you're sharing models between them, you don't run into this issue of, well, it works on my machine because the configurations are different, right? It allows you to use the same environments across your teams. So let's get started by getting the lay of the land a little bit. This is our modeling studio called Atlas. All the way over here on the left, we have the different views that we offer. What we're looking at right now is the Explorer. We also have search, source control, and debugging. And this debugging is a full debugger, the same capabilities that you would expect on any desktop environment, but now fully in the cloud. So we'll go back to the Explorer view. And what we're looking at here is our file system. The file system has all of the functionality that you would expect in a file system. You can create and you know, both files and folders. You can move things around and rename and add and delete. You have full control over all of the files in your system. And this large area over here to the right is the editor. And this will show you the contents of any open file and allow you to edit many of the file types. Now, preloaded into every one of our workspaces is what we call our model library. Our model library has over 100 models, and these really act as a great place for you to start or to get some direction on how to do something or where to go or what problems that can be solved with optimization. And you can see that these range across many different solution types, right? Hydropower, market sharing, composing flight crews, so on and so forth. We have a lot of breadth when it comes to the types of problems that we offer. Each one of these will come with a PDF that is a cover sheet. It gives a detailed description of what the problem is, as well as the question that it's attempting to answer. Comes with a code file, which is the full set of code, and then a data file as well that represents the example data for this model. Now, each of these models is written in Pyomo and targets Gurobi to solve, which we can see right here. And again, each of these models is ready to run. And so I can run it locally. And just like that, I have run a model that targets Gurobi for a solve. Now, along with our model library, we also include all of the Gurobi examples that are included when you install Gurobi on any local machine. Now, these are fantastic for learning how to use Gurobi using the Gurobi interface in Python, GurobiPy. And each of these is ready to run as well. They all have everything that they need to run right out of the box. So each one of our users has enough material to really get them going and answer a lot of different questions that might arise when they're trying to get into modeling. Now, our editor is feature rich, and it has a whole bunch of functionality that you would expect in an editor. Obviously, you can see that we have syntax highlighting. We also have code analysis that's running in the background that'll give you information about the code that you're writing. Again, just like a desktop experience. But it also has a whole host of other functionality that really aids in the process of creating and configuring and debugging these models.
It really is a good IDE. And the thing that I noticed the most, Matt, was how responsive it is. I'm not used to web applications being that responsive, and it's very smooth experience, really a native desktop experience in my book.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's definitely a testament to our engineering team. I think that they have done a wonderful job in what they have put together. But it's also a testament to how far technology in general, web technology, has come. I would say that even up to about 5 years ago, it was really difficult to get this type of experience in a browser for this type of activity. And so technology has advanced far enough now that we can offer that smooth experience now in the web. So you can access this from anywhere. You can pull up a tablet and open up Chrome, when you're in an airport, and pull up and run your models. And it's really fantastic. And while the editor is nice, we also include full debugging capability that I had mentioned before. So we can see all the threads that are running. I'm going to start a debugging session here to kind of show you some context. But we'll be able to see all the threads that are running, which at this point we have the one main thread. We have our call stack. So if you have a more complicated and involved model that maybe uses many different modules that you write, you have that flow control, and you can see the call stack. You can see all of your variables, as well as watch different either variables or expressions. I need to type in the right name. So we can see here all of the aspects of our model, as well as set and manage breakpoints. Another really cool thing is that, just like, again, the experience that people are used to in an IDE, it's all here in the web. I can hover over and see contextual information right from the editor, and I can drill in and find whatever piece of information I'm looking for. So, to your point, the responsiveness and the smooth experience of the IDE, it's real, and it's fully featured, and it's a great environment to build and run your models in, because you didn't have to set any of it up. This is all ready to go out of the box with Optilogic. Now, once you've gotten, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that that's really a convenient feature. There's a lot of preparation a developer has to do when they're getting ready for the first time to use a new solver, and this takes care of it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even with developers, it can take a lot of time and effort to figure out how to configure an environment just right. And then hopefully, you never want to touch it again, because the second you touch it, it might break, and then you have to fix it. So you get it dialed in just right, and then you just hope that nothing messes it up, because those can be frustrating. Now, at some point, once you get through this model building process, at some point, there are a lot of reasons that might pop up that you would want to make this model that you have run repeatable. Now that means you have to be able to put it somewhere, and hopefully you're not just running it off of your own machine, because particularly with larger models, that can tie up your machine. So if you're running a model that is really CPU and RAM intensive, and it takes 2 or 3 hours to run, well, you might as well go to lunch, because for those 2 or 3 hours, your machine can become unusable because the solve needs all of your resources. So with Optilogic, you can use our API to both automate the running of the model, as well as scale it like you haven't been able to before. Now, I'm sure you've noticed by now, I'm going to stop this debugging session. When I ran locally, and we saw the output here, I clicked on this button called Run Locally. And what that does is it runs inside the machine that you have spun up in our platform. But there's another way to run a model. What you can do is click on this Run an Andromeda button. And what this does is actually pushes it out to our backend. We call it our hyperscaling execution system. So this can take on any number of jobs across our user base, and it automatically spins up and provisions resources for you to be able to run a solve in the cloud. So I can run this here, and we'll see the output here is actually the output from our API, saying that it successfully sent it to Andromeda. So what I can do, I'm going to open this up in a new tab. You go to our jobs dashboard. You'll see a lot of activity here because I've been using our API quite a bit. But in our Serpens workspace, we'll see that job has now started. And I ran the capacitated facility location problem. And so it's currently in the starting state when I loaded this. And this will go through the states until it finishes. And back in our workspace, if there are any outputs for this model, then they will be here waiting for us when the job is done. Now, this is a really nice way when you're working with models in Atlas to be able to sort of throw them over the wall to Andromeda and let Andromeda take care of running. Again, particularly with really long running models. The nice thing is that it's the exact same process if you call the API to run the job from wherever you want, right? You can run multiple models at the same time, or many variations or scenarios of a particular model. And every time you run, you get dedicated resources for that model run in our system. So this easily allows you to obtain a level of scale that we haven't seen anyone able to match up until this point.
Well, that really matters for Gurobi too. Some models do great on 2 cores like I have on my laptop here, but if I now want to test it on an 8-core or 16-core machine, it's typical for that to be a big IT function for a lot of our customers. A lot of companies require that. And with this, there's no IT involvement at all. I click a button. I think it's a really key and exciting feature here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to scale physical hardware. If you pause and then add a new machine to a cluster, that type of activity takes a long time and it takes a lot of money. And we have now coupled the world's fastest and most performant MIP solver, Gurobi, with our backend system, so you can scale across 100 or 1,000 or even more separate model runs, and we get to use the power of the cloud to scale that up for you in an instant. It's really, really exciting stuff. Now, along with this scalability, which is incredibly valuable and important, our API also allows you to drastically reduce the time that it takes to deploy a model. You can hook up a model to a backend process, embed it in an Excel file, or write a complex enterprise application that all has optimization embedded at its core. And any model in your account is actually by default already deployed because it's accessible through the API. And so now you can push data in, execute models, and pull data back out to power any sort of visualization or application that you may have. Along those lines, I want to show you two applications that we've put together that are powered at their core by Optilogic to kind of give you an idea of what you can power when you're using us as your back end. So the first one is a transportation sourcing application. It provides some insights into how different sourcing decisions might affect things like cost and risk.
So using Optilogic for deployment is another sort of killer application or killer feature of this Optilogic system, because you can, it does away with a lot of the burden that operations researchers have to carry with their own apps. I mean, normally they would involve IT teams or developer teams to do the full deployment. But again, here we're talking about a few clicks and you've got a deployable application or so runnable through an API. It's really great, I think.
Yeah, when the task in front of you for every model that you have or that you've created is to create something custom, to be able to make it reusable, the bar is really high in that case. And our API allows you to sort of have a protocol for dealing with models. And it really reduces the amount of work, drastically reduces the amount of work it takes to deploy any model to any system. I mean, we're talking about, tens of thousands of lines of code reduced to, less than 100 of, simple API calls. Now, the second application we're going to go over is a visual demonstration of how quickly and seamlessly Optilogic can scale your model runs. So let me switch over to our sourcing application. Now, the premise of this application is rather simple. As a user, I need to see some high-level information about my model before I run it. So I've run a baseline, and then I need to run a baseline. And then after that, I will want to run some scenarios and compare it against my baseline to see how certain changes to my model impact my network. So a pretty standard kind of set of business questions that businesses will want to get some insight into. Now, in this initial input view, we link the data that is in our Optilogic account, and we roll that up into a few metrics and call those out right here from this landing page. We also have a couple different visualizations about supplier information and a map that shows us where all of our suppliers are located. Now, I can also view the raw data that is under the hood here by switching to this view. And this, all this is really doing is showing you a view into the data that's living in your Optilogic account. So I've connected to this data and pulled it into the front end with our API. Now, once we have our baseline optimization run, which we'll just switch to now, we'll see a different set of metrics. We'll see some cost breakdown. We have different mode and risk information here, as well as the different charts relating to our suppliers. And now we have a map that I can even turn the arcs on here to show that once the optimization is run, now I have actually data that I can represent my network and my flow with, and then graph that here. So this offloads the burden of running the actual optimization to our back end. Now, once I've gotten a decent idea of what my baseline looks like, I will want to look at some different options for scenarios, right? Which I can choose and then run. The scenario that we run here is where we consider alternate suppliers to see if that will affect my underlying cost, which we see that it has roughly about 25% of my overall production cost, or my overall cost of my network. And then I can do things like compare and contrast different pieces of my network, view pieces of information about each of the nodes or the arcs that are connecting nodes, and so on and so forth. Now, every optimization run in this application is handled by our execution system. And you can imagine that if we wanted to run, let's say, 10 or 20 different scenarios, typically what we would need to do is we would need to run each of those and then wait for each of them to finish, and then we can start to compare data. And you can imagine a world where we decide to just run them all. And then they all finish in about the time it takes to run one of them, and then we can start comparing and visualizing the information in a much more rapid scenario.
Well, these comparisons are really valuable, and being able to do it all in one system is going to be important to math programmers. I mean, it's one thing to deliver what you know is the best answer. An operations researcher can do that, but it's usually not enough. The planner needs to know what's behind this, and they can only do that with these kinds of comparisons, these sort of side-by-side visualizations of what's going on. This is really valuable.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The value that we get from seeing the output of an optimization can't be understated. But in many ways, it can be hard to understand how it fits into the grand scheme of things, right? Into the business question that you're attempting to answer. And when you can access those things via an API, you can very easily and seamlessly start to pump that data into other tools that you need to analyze it, visualization and others. Okay, so let's jump over to this app that demonstrates the scalability of our platform. And Dan, I'm really excited to show you this because you haven't seen it before. And it's a fantastic visualization of the sheer scale of resources that our users have at their fingertips to solve their models. Imagine that you had a need to run hundreds of iterations or scenarios of a model. Now, I'm going to start this process, and let's say we want to run 100 different jobs, or scenarios or model runs, 100 different iterations, and we're going to tell Optilogic to use up to 50 jobs to run this.
That's really elegant. There's a lot of IT work behind that someone would have to do on their own. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to make these things pretty simple. Because like you said, there's a lot going on under the hood to make this all feel simple. So we're going to let this run, and while this is running, I'll kind of we'll talk about kind of the story of why you might want to do this. Now, many of our users will be familiar with the concept of the optimization frontier, or exploring the solution space of a solve. Now, typically in optimization, we will optimize in one or maybe two dimensions. The first of which is usually financial, right? So we're trying to minimize a cost of some kind. Another common one is service. Now, these are very important, but there are also other dimensions to consider for business, and these include operational complexity and scalability and risk. Now, these also need to be considered in a solution that maybe on paper is financially optimal, but it might not be operationally feasible. And this is where running some sensitivity analysis is extremely useful. If we can relax some constraints and see how they affect the overall solution, then we can get an idea of other solutions that may be more feasible for, let's say, something like sustainability and risk, and they're close enough to the financially optimal solution so that they still are a valid solution for us. Now, the model that we're running right now, it does an initial solve, which you see with this single node here. And then it shifts and resolves as necessary. So whether that's shifting costs or capacities or any number of other variations that can be run. After each solve, it uses some pattern recognition to rank and evaluate what to try next. And then it outputs a handful of those models to run, or those variations to run, and then the app will continue on and run those. Now, all of this is going on in the depths of the model, so we're not showing all of that logic here. But what we're seeing here is a representation of how quickly this can be leveraged, meaning our resources within Optilogic can be leveraged to get us through this process. Now, a lot of times when we talk about sensitivity analysis and you know, for models that take a long time to run, and by long time I mean hours, ideally you would be able to run, you know, hundreds of iterations to really fully explore that solution space. But the runtime is so prohibitive that you have to run fewer because of time constraints. But with Optilogic, you don't need to do that. You can take advantage of the full scalability of our platform. Now the graph here shows at each node how many branches are spawned from that particular model run. And the different colors give you an idea of the status that those particular jobs are in. And you know how that job is being handled at the moment. Well, we started with one job and it stayed there for a little bit. You can see we're starting to quickly scale up and explore this solution space much more rapidly. Now at the bottom here, we have a couple charts that will really highlight just how much you have available to you in our system. So you see here our CPU and RAM utilization. This will show you at any given time how much is being leveraged in Optilogic. So you see here we had 464 cores and 90 gigabytes of RAM in use across all of the nodes that were being run. And it has since bumped up to nearly 700 cores with 134 gigabytes of RAM. And that just scales up as much as you need. You know, currently, looks like we just got to 50 jobs across all of these nodes. And we can kind of see how that steps up over time. And then as these jobs finish, the difference doesn't look like much here between the total runtime and then the CPU time. But as these jobs finish, we'll see this number really start to climb. And you know what we'll see is that in a matter of a few minutes, you know, you can accomplish what would take hours or even days in other scenarios. Now, I will mention that the model here. Oh yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was just going to cut in and say this is just really a cool looking screen, and but I'm also thinking as I look at this at how much infrastructure is needed to make this happen. It's just staggering, but you've condensed it down to this one screen. It's just very elegant.
Yeah, this is where I really get to play around, because you know when we're running individual models, like most of us do, particularly when we start, it's fun to take advantage of our back-end system, you know, when we're going to run a long-running model. But I got to tell you, it's really fun to kind of play around with this and throw a whole lot of work. And I say a whole lot of work. This isn't a lot of work, not for our system. We're built on Microsoft Azure, and we can scale up as large as they will let us scale, and we're elastic, so we scale up and down depending on what the need is. Now, I will mention that the model that's being run here is real, and this is being run in real time. It's a small model, so we kind of scope the runtime to make sure that it fits in sort of a demo purpose. But again, you can imagine trying to run proper sensitivity analysis on a model that takes, you know, an hour or multiple hours to run. It really is prohibitive. And so for the most part, people just don't do it because it takes far too much time. And so you settle for a suboptimal answer without having really explored your solution space. Another use case for being able to run hundreds of models or thousands of models. Let's say you want to build a little application that you want to offer the use of your model to somebody else. Maybe that's internally, or maybe that's externally, and you want to power an application. And you have many different users that all want to hit that model at the same time. That's just fine. And again, our system can handle that seamlessly.
Well, this really makes scaling easy. It's, as I said, it's elegant.
Yeah, we're happy with where we are, and as much as Gurobi is dedicated to increasing performance of an individual solve, we are dedicated to increasing the performance of this scalability system. Kind of all the things that might live around an individual solve, we can provide the infrastructure to really make this thing scale across large solutions. And in our system, you can spin up those resources instantly and allow all of these things to execute simultaneously. So it's a really exciting time to be in the optimization space because in my opinion, we're making some really good waves, and we're excited to be doing that with Gurobi. Now I'll kind of let this finish. As we see, we've done 100 runs, so we're getting close to reaching the full run, having everything run. We see that in less than 10 minutes, we've done 2.5 hours worth of CPU work. So very efficient, which is great. I would love to be able to do that. Now, the last piece of our platform, right? The last pillar that we mentioned is collaboration, and this takes form in really many ways. A couple of which I'll talk about. Now, currently, for instance, a user in our platform can share a model with a colleague simply by typing in their email address, and we send it directly to that colleague's account, right? So it's a really great way to quickly share models. And we're working on more robust sharing capability, much like things like OneDrive and Google Drive and Dropbox. So you can, in real time, access files together and collaborate on models if you so choose to, right? So you can manage permissions and all of that to really make that sharing experience seamless and modern. And in this way, you'll be able to access all of your models and data from any device that has a modern web browser. The other critical component of collaboration that we see is developing a community that connects the members of the OR space. The OR community isn't growing very fast, and while there are platforms like a Stack Overflow, right? That's a place that for development has really kind of gathered the world's collective experience, right? It's a fantastic resource for developers. You have platforms like LinkedIn, where you can develop a professional network, which is also really important. You stay connected to your colleagues, you stay connected to the space. At Optilogic, we believe that OR deserves some of those tools that are tailored to it, to really help connect specifically the OR community and help those people connect and drive forward together and collaborate. And this is why we're currently developing our Optilogic community. And this will be a place where users not only can ask any questions, particularly OR questions, but they can create and follow different relevant groups or topics. They can offer their expertise in answering questions or help fellow practitioners respond to job opportunities. And then they'll be able to connect with each other as well. This will also give a much better view into our model library as new models come out. You'll be able to access them there. And we view this Optilogic community as a connective fabric that brings the world's collective OR experience together, all in the same place. And we really think that this will help drive the adoption of optimization and other relevant technologies.
Well, I think it will, Matt, because from my experience working in Gurobi support, I know that collaboration can be important to math programmers. Small teams or solo math programmers frequently need to share their model, get another pair of eyes on it. And well, you can't do that with the systems available today. So I think this will be useful.
Yeah, we do too. And we very much look forward to unveiling our community within the next few months. And so stay tuned. You can sign up for updates on our website as well. Like as these things come out, you can be notified. But we're very excited. We're excited with where we are and extremely excited about where we're going, both with our platform and in conjunction with Gurobi. So Dan, thanks so much for taking the time to kind of be here with us. You know, we'll be around to answer any questions from our audience.